I'm going to just leave the screensaver up for a moment as we begin for the people who are tuning in later on YouTube, but for all of us, because it sort of gives you the structure of the talk. Talk is practicing love in a time of empire, and it really is three parts. And I've got some icons up on top that correspond with each of the sections of the talk. And those of you who are regulars, I'll remember that I'll send you the notes of all this. I've been working on this for a couple of weeks, and I'll probably only actually use about a third of the notes. So quotes and whatever, I'll send out all the notes to all the usual suspects. So you guys who normally are here and you normally get them. But if you're new or don't normally get to the notes, just send me an email at looseleafhollow.com, and I'll and just put notes in the subject, and I'll be glad to send them if you want them. Uh, just to describe the situation a little bit, and then we'll go on to uh, this three-part talk. So I think I can take the screensaver down now first. Yeah. Uh, Rupert Sheldrake, who's a great far out biologist, microbiologist, and other things, just a prophet and an Englishman. He talked about morphic resonance. He talked about morphic fields, that you are in fields of many people, many beings. The largest morphic field might be the universe, then our galaxy, then our solar system, then our planet. We're all in all those morphic fields, but we're also when you're in on the planet in a world like we're in now, we're we're in morphic fields that include for Americans, military on the streets of Los Angeles, something I've never experienced in my 75 years, where, well, other than the turning out the National Guard to segregate the colleges in Mississippi. That was the only time, and that was to protect uh, protesters and protect civil rights. But this is rare, upsetting. Uh, what's going on in Gaza? That where people are penned in to a fenced-in area about the size of Detroit, and no food is allowed to go in. They're just being starved in front of our eyes. Uh, Iran just bombed. Uh, we got rogue states in this world. Israel is one of them. We've become one of them. We no ignoring international law. Our administration is ignoring our own laws. Um, and then something that really, really just breaks my heart is the way we're destroying the structure of the government, just gutting institutions that took 200 plus years to evolve, and all the people fired, all the money appropriated by Congress being pulled back into a big pot to be given to billionaires. That's the way I see it. And USAID, I remember seeing their presence in Haiti for my many years there. Ron knows that too, sitting here. And but Bill Gates put it best. Bill Gates is a billionaire who is retired and spending most of his money helping people in the world, helping people in Africa mainly. Uh, and Gates said essentially he said the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, is killing the poorest men, women, and children in the world by gutting USAID. That's 40% of all the USAID still has like $8 billion that was given to them by our Congress legally, and to help people in the world. PEPFAR, it's helping uh, people deal with AIDS in Africa. All that's cut. Finally, the 12,000 people working all over the world in the poorest areas, they've all been fired. And they want to claw that money back, basically, to give it to billionaires with a tax cut. I mean, that's just as simple as I could put it. And they figure, based on that 300,000 people will die this year, just because the United States was giving 40% of the world's aid to the poor people, feeding the people. Uh, there's food in warehouses and on boats waiting in harbors that I don't know what they're going to do. It's just rotting. So that's just a little bit of what's going on in this morphic field on this planet. Uh, authoritarianism is always been present, but it's on the rise. And so the question becomes for me, and I just bring this question to the those of you who are here. I really appreciate you being here. The question is, how do we respond to the fear, the hatred, the cruelty, and the greed? How do we respond to all that? Fear, hatred, cruelty, greed. There's no other names for it. Uh, how do we respond with wisdom and compassion rather than react the way the powers that be all over the world want people to react when they see just hatred, enemy formation, picking out a certain people. It's the oldest trick in the book. Hitler perfected it, of course, but these people are the problem. Immigrants are the problem, etc. Jews are the problem. It's the easiest way to get a small coalition together to do horrible things, and we've seen it happen, and it's happening now. People just kidnap off the street. In Guatemala or Mexico City. There's no due process. So all this is the world we're living in here. And so these icons here are going to help us. And I want to start with the icon on the left of FDR. FDR was elected 4 times. Imagine that. He's the only one who's been elected more than 2 times, which became a part of the Constitution. The Republicans basically put it in the Constitution that you could only be. But wow, how could this guy have been elected 4 times? What was going on? Well, there was the combination of he inherited the United States in the Great Depression, and you got him there. A picture of the stamp there as he's talking into a microphone. He's talking to the American people, and he's telling them, don't be afraid. We can get through this. And that's actually one, I want this whole thing to be encouraging and give you a sense of how you can respond. He was telling people we got bombed by Pearl Harbor. He had World War II. So he had 2 of the biggies, the Great Depression. He got us through that. Start putting people to work. And, uh, that was huge. So I know we can do huge things. This is none of the things is as big as World War II and the Depression that we face. And he was a great leader. If you want to know the difference between an authoritarian and then a leader who leads with authority, which if you read the Gospels, Jesus's first miracle, the people in the background, the writer Mark says people were saying, "Who is this guy? He teaches with authority, not like those school rabbis." And so the difference between an authoritarian and somebody who just is a person of a leader of authority is whether you tear people down, you push people down, and you want all the power, or you raise people up. And FDR raised people up. They never forgot that. They elected him 4 times. We need that kind of leader. And there are individuals who are doing that. And so don't be afraid. It's natural to be afraid, but just don't give into it. And so that's the first thing to say. We've been through this before, and bigger things really. Even leadership will pull us through, and really, right now, we the people are having to pull ourselves through because a lot of things are breaking down in our culture and worldwide. International law, what does it mean now? Yeah, we're going to have to reestablish that. So it can be done. It's not as big as those things. We've been through rough times before, and but this is serious. Now, don't despair. Uh, in parentheses, there you can say, do something. That we don't have the uh, we don't have the luxury to despair. We got to do something. You're here. That's doing something. If you've been 4 years ago in the center of COVID when everybody was just traumatized and locked up in their houses, uh, Jill challenged me to do something. He said, "You got to teach the people." I said, "Well, how can I teach?" And she says, "Well, you can teach on Zoom." I said, "What's Zoom?" Imagine those days. And I didn't want to do it because I don't like technology that much. I'm sort of a curmudgeon. And she said, "Well, I'll do all." She was working on Zoom. She works with uh, Warren Buffett's sister, Doris Buffett, started a charity again for rich people who are actually using their wealth to help people. There's not too many of them, but there are some. And she was working with abused women and connecting on Zoom with them. So she knew how to do that. And so I said, all right. Uh, and from the get go, well, when somebody who was, was advertising, they said, well, what does it cost? I said, it doesn't cost anything. There's no charge. And back then you had passwords because they were worried about people coming on and I don't know, doing what on your thing. And I've always just let people come in. The, the You can get into this. It's printed on my website, on my Monday thing. So I wanted anybody to come, whether they had a nickel or they were rich, it didn't matter. It was a gift from Jill and I to the world, to the COVID people. Well, we're still here 4 years later. COVID's over, but it's still rolling. And so people, some of you, which are regulars here, part of this community, a heart to heart community, uh, it's a gift every time when you show up. We've got 20, 25, some number of people here, small community, but that's a gift in itself. You just show up. You're taking out your time to show up. Somebody asked me to describe this thing, and I just said it was a loving interspiritual community committed to the practice of wisdom, compassion, peace, and joy. That's really how I see it. It's an interspiritual community. We don't have a denomination. The spirit doesn't care about what church you go to or whatever. It's just trying to dance with you. It's trying to call you in. But we're committed to a kind of practice. That's why we have true formal meditation practices today. And really, listening to a talk like this is a practice. So when I talk about practicing love in a time of the empire, it's not proclaiming love. All you need is love, as the Beatles say. Well, that's proclaiming it, all right, but practicing it's another story. And just showing up today, practice, and actually doing the practice now of listening with the ear of your heart to this talk and just noticing when you resonate with something that sort of seems like wisdom, just noticing that. And then you could be writing it as I talk. If something comes up with the words that cause something to happen, you just jot it down. So you could be jotting it all the time while the talk goes on. So that's just showing up today. That's a practice, and it's a blessing. It's a gift for me to have a community here to share with. Um, there's a kind of ripple effect beyond the community, though, that I like to remind you of all the time. In addition to your presence, whenever and whatever you can afford to chip in, not only keeps this meeting going, Zoom costs, and I'm also trying to keep this place open for primarily the people in this community to come and just pull out for a couple of days. So anything you and whatever you can chip in, really appreciate it. That's a gift from you to this whole project. But it also helps to keep other humanitarian and pro-democracy organizations so alive and functioning. Because I get more gifts than I need to run this place and to pay for Zoom. So I just want to tell you about 9 ways we ripple out here. Every month, money goes out to, well, PBS, which is public broadcast, is on the firing line now. You should be calling. I've called Mitch McConnell and what's his name, and call your senators, because it's in the hands of the Senate whether they're going to take all the funding for PBS, NPR, and all that. So I send money every month to them from this group. International Rescue Committee. These guys are working and dying in Gaza still with very little to work with. Partners in Health. The ACLU, which is the latest one that I've given money to, and we'll give money every month because we need lawyers to stand up for the law. The Poor People's Campaign. Reverend William Barber's campaign. It's just just an amazing moral prophet in this country. The Sunrise Movement, the young kids are trying to save this planet. American Friends Service Committee, the Quakers that are still in Gaza trying to help people, and both the Rescue Committee and the American Friends, the Quakers have lost people lost their lives doing it. And then a couple of journalistic nonprofits, ProPublica and Democracy Now! Democracy Now! Is my favorite news source. You might know that. So every month, we're also rippling out to keep these people, so a lot of them in very tough situations, uh, alive and functioning, because our government's pulling the money. So we're doing so. So that's doing something. Just your presence here. I have a woman who every time she comes, sends me $5 because she's just on a very low budget, and to me, that's when I get that it's my favorite contribution to this work because I know she has no money really. Yeah, so that's a way. Okay, so that's doing something, and that uplifts my spirits just being here. So that's the first thing. Don't you're afraid, but don't be not afraid means, well, okay, you are afraid because they're trying to fear is one of the things that's authoritarians try to instill in people, and then you back up. There was all kinds of stuff being put out by right wing people about shoot a few of them and the rest will run away. These kinds of things that they're trying to discourage people from showing up for the No Kings protest today. Well, that's you be safe, be safe, but be not afraid and don't despair. And there's a lot to be encouraged about. And now the middle picture I had was an icon of Jesus and the Buddha uh, hugging. It's a great image of not two, uh, because these are my two real. They're behind me here. Pictures of Jesus and Buddha, and these two traditions are my two. That are the two things I stand on too. And I want to talk about each tradition a little bit because Buddhism is really, you always see the Buddha meditating. So it's about contemplation, and the Jesus tradition was included that, of course, but it was more about action. Jesus wasn't in a monastery. The Buddha invented the monastery. Jesus uh, was in the streets. He was rarely in the temple, but when he was, he caused trouble. He was a man of action, uh, turning over the tables of the money lenders. That was his unbelievable action there. And besides healing, he said that was a symbolic action, saying this whole economy is rigged and not in our favor. And that really is what got him crucified. The Romans did it, but the Jewish were, the Jewish hierarchy. He was threatening the whole system. So contemplation and action. Uh, it was. I've got a couple poems on this, and then that should take us to somewhere around 10. After 9/11, before 9/11, I'd signed up for a retreat up in Indianapolis at the Benedictine Sisters kind of monastery. It's called Beech Grove. And the Buddhists and the uh, Trappists and Benedictines, pretty much Buddhists and Benedictines and Trappists, had been studying the rule of Saint Benedict together for a year and communicating. It was a real inter-spiritual dialogue thing. And so I was signed up with some people from Nashville. And we were going up, and then boom, 9/11 happened. Everybody was in shock. People were the leaders and teachers were coming from all over the world, from different traditions to come to this. And I didn't know if it was going to happen or not. And it did happen, and we showed up. And not only did everybody show up, but more people showed up. I mean, that's the idea when there's crises and trauma like we have now in the world, then people are hungry for this. And so all the Buddhist teachers but one showed up. But one, I'm looking at her picture now in my notes. She was a tiny, like 5 foot tall uh, Taiwanese Buddhist monk, and her name was Yi Fa. And when 9/11 happened, you couldn't fly anywhere, or to the United States anyway. Her abbess at the monastery in Taiwan said, "Well, it's too dangerous. Don't go." And Ifa said, "Well, if we don't go where the suffering is, what's Buddhism all about?" And so she went, but she had to fly to, how was it? She flew to Australia, and then from Australia to Western Canada, and then she had to take a bus to Indianapolis. Well, she made it, and there are many great talks, but her talk, uh, people ask her a question like, what are you going to do after this?" She says, "Well," she said, I plan on going to New York and getting as close as I can to ground zero, and then putting out my meditation mat and just sit there and until I have no more tears, and just grieve it until I have no more tears, and then I'll just try to help anybody I can help." It was really impressive. And so I wrote this poem after that because, you know, all the guys that are in my pantheon of great teachers, they all opposed war, and war just never solved anything. And so, but if you remember those times, as soon as this happened, we're going to go and we're going to bomb somebody. Well, and I was mentioning that to somebody, and then one of my dear friends in the faculty lounge, she said, "I don't like war, but I feel we have to do something." Well, I went and wrote this poem after there. It's called "Sit There," and it's after Sister Yi Fa. "I don't like war," a friend said, "but I feel we have to do something. But why? Isn't that just our deepest American addiction? Life happens and we feel compelled to react by doing something right now. What if we followed the crazy wisdom of Zen? Don't just do something, sit there." I saw that on a t-shirt one time. What if we followed the crazy wisdom of Zen? When things happen like this, 9/11, the deaths in the family, it doesn't matter. The crash of 2008, we lost about a third of the pittance that we had for retirement. What if we followed the crazy wisdom of Zen? Don't just do something. Don't just react. Sit there. So this is a call to contemplation, to being, and then to try to find out how to respond. And don't just do something. Sit there. What if we just sat on the ashes at ground zero and wept until we could weep no more? Perhaps that mighty river of grief would cleanse our eyes and give us brand new eyes and the vision that America and the world so desperately needs. So please don't just do something, sit there until the ashes have grown cold and your tender heart of hearts catches fire. Yeah, I remember that moment after 9/11 for a couple of days. Everybody was kind in New York. It was quite a miracle. The kindness was the only thing that made any sense at that time. People were helping people. And maybe if we had taken the time to grieve this deep wound, it would have cleansed our eyes and given us brand new eyes and the vision that America and the world so desperately needs. How to respond to this kind of violence and warfare a different way. Well, we didn't. We reacted. We started bombing a country that had nothing to do with it. Uh, uh, Afghanistan. Later, we went on to bomb Iraq, who had nothing to do with it. And so this poem is a call. First of all, when you're upset, when you've been hurt or wounded, and you're going all reactive, to be able to sit. If you have a This is the practice of sitting meditation. Is you sit with this. We'll hear from Merton about this later before we sit next time, because we are sitting with all this. And then until the ashes have grown cold, until you've grieved the wound first fully. We never did that. The whole world was in our corner after 9/11 in that year. The whole world was in our corner and we lost them all because we just started bombing people. Think about that. And now we're a rogue nation, you know? So to have a contemplation is doing something. So when you said, don't despair, do something. Well, the first thing is the fact that you're here now uh, is doing something. The fact that we're sitting and really trying to connect with our right brains, connect with the wisdom of the spirit of what. How do you respond to this? What are we going to do in the way of respond rather than react? Rather than when people are threatening you and making you fearful, we tend to either deny or just go underground or freeze, and we can't afford to do that. So that's a Buddhist encouraging thing, because the Buddha was unique, but he invented the monastery. He says, let's pull out of this crazy, because there was wars. It was crazy in northern India. He said, they had the caste system, and all. It was rough. And so he said, let's pull in and let's go inside for a while, and then we'll know how we can go out and help. So that's contemplation. This is a poem about the Jesus tradition, which Buddhism helped me really, in my life, helped me really go back to, because I was raised Catholic and just, didn't want to have anything to do with it, at some point. And Buddhism brought me back. I kept reading all these Buddhist guys talk about Thomas Merton, Catholic monk. I didn't know anything about him other than he died. I didn't even know we had monks. And that led me back to uh, looking at my own tradition, what I was born into. This one goes like this. Rome's empire was fueled by love of power. Every authoritarian empire or enterprise is fueled by the love of power. The Jesus community was fueled by the power of love. Jesus laid out an inspired, step-by-step revolutionary curriculum to help all of us ripen our humanity, which is also surprisingly our divinity. Unfortunately, in the 4th century, many of the Jesus folk got in bed with the Roman Empire. Constantine, 325, a bunch of the bishops came out of their foxholes and went to the seaside, palatial resort, and they created essentially the Roman Catholic Church. unfortunately, but it existed for the as a counter movement against empire for 300 years. You have those stories if you grew up like me of all the guys going to the lions and St. Lawrence. They put them on a griddle and burned them. Things like that. Rather than say Caesar is Lord, Caesar is who is God. No, they didn't do that, and so they co-opted it and they brought him into the And just like a hidden treasure, this curriculum, also known as the Beatitudes, was mysteriously buried and has been waiting for millennia to be rediscovered and put into practice. That was the thing that changed my life and got me back into the original Jesus idea. And the Jesus folk was spending about a year and a half translating the Aramaic the Beatitudes from Aramaic, and then also the Lord's Prayer from Aramaic. And man, it changed my life. The Beatitudes really changed my life. It's a curriculum for how you can um, become a full human being, ripen into it. Luckily, there's no time like the present to wake up and realize that to be whole as the universe is whole simply means living a life as bold as love, putting love in practice. Love's a force. It's not a sentiment. Dante and the Divine Comedy ends with this image that's been riveted in my soul. He said he went 1,000 goes through hell and purgatory and then into the center of heaven, and at the very center of heaven it was love, the incarnation of love. And he said the love that moves the sun and all the other stars. It was a force. It moves things. And that's people don't see love like that. They think it is sentimental, and love is just being nice, or you be a doormat. How can you love what's going on now? Well, it's a commitment. It comes from the very center. Uh, the mystics in lots of traditions, Sufi mystics, Christian mystics, that's your very center is the power of love, the power of the whole universe. It's a power. Uh, Einstein was looking for the unified field that held everything together. He couldn't find it in mathematics, but he intuited it that it had to exist. Well, Rumi in the 13th century, a Sufi, the Sufis actually picked up original Christianity and went with it. They understood. They thought Jesus was a Sufi. He had the essence of it. Rumi says, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. Again, this morphic field, this unified field. There's a field. I'll meet you there. He says, when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense when we're together in this field, this unified field of love. So even way back then, they knew that there was the power in the universe. They just called it love. The Buddhists call it wisdom and compassion. Tomato, tomato. There's a lot of different. The Tao. The Chinese call it the Tao. Tomato, tomato. These are just words we throw at it, but it's essentially it's different than this kind of aggressive, cruel, greedy energy in the world right now. And this takes us to our last be the change you want to see. This is a quote by Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world is a quote from Gandhi. That's what he said. You've got to be the change. You're not working for it. You've got to integrate it with your own life, which was very much like both Jesus and the Buddha. The true prophets are saying you have to make these changes in your own life. Another quote was, whenever you have truth, it must be given with love, or the message and the messenger will be rejected. Whenever you have truth, it must be given with love, or the message and the messenger will be rejected. Now, Gandhi was, killed by one of his own people, because he was saying we have to love the British. We want them to leave as friends. We want them to walk out as friends. But he was, he was tough. He taught people to be nonviolent, which we have to learn again in this country. Martin Luther King picked that up from Gandhi, and that was the power that actually got Black people rights that they've been denied a long time. But you have to work with nonviolence, and it comes from love. Because to be nonviolent when you're sitting at a lunch counter, we have the old lunch counter here in Bardstown, and there were sit-ins there, and you had to be prepared for people to do anything. Take your food and throw it on, whatever, burn you with cigarettes, cuss you out. You'd have to just sit there. You had to do it, and that took a lot more strength than fighting somebody with your fist. And it's you have to love these people. They're the people running this government. They are confused as to what is even going to make them happy. It's a sense of delusion and confusion. It's what the Buddha called ignorance. And so, we've all been confused. You don't hate them, because if you hate them, then the Buddha said, hating your enemies is like blood, washing bloody hands with more blood. Doesn't work. Jesus said the same thing. You got to love God, love your neighbor as yourself, even love your enemies. This didn't mean feeling good about them or doing what they say. It just meant you just know at the very center is love, and in the worst person in the world, doesn't matter. Okay. And so there has to be love behind any kind of action that you take. I'm here because I love being here. I love being with you. Uh, that's the real reason that I sit every day a couple times, because I love I love just being present, open, and available to whatever the spirit's got in line for me. And there's something about showing up, okay, that is fueled by love. So Gandhi said too that the practice of love, truth, and nonviolence will always defeat violence and tyranny. He says all tyrants fall, and if you look at history, that's true. All empires fall. You know, even to start to realize that we're in an empire that now is sort of like the Darth Vader guys in Star Wars. The rest of the world isn't that thrilled. We've sort of lost that revolutionary spirit that wanted to make people free. We can get it back though. And to work with love and nonviolence is much slower. Violence is quick. War is this kind of quick, cruel, incredibly harmful thing to change. You take over another country. Okay, now they got peace, Yeah, because we're in control. But it doesn't last. There's a blitzkrieg, when Nazis swept across, took Poland, swept across, Vivian's country was occupied by Nazis. My uh, uh, relatives in northern Italy were fighting the Nazis and beat them actually up there working with the Allies. Tyrants always fall, empires always fall, but it's not quick. We're not going to get this thing all back and humming in the right direction with the next election. It doesn't work like that. But if you know plants, you know that the plants that grow fast fall over, they're weak, and then the plants that grow slowly are sturdier. And so we want that kind of change. So don't be impatient, even when it seems like nothing's working and they're getting stronger. It won't work. Tyrants always fall, and the truth and nonviolence is actually the only thing that ever worked. Gandhi got the British Empire out of India. He said there 100,000 British cannot control 100 million Indians if we don't let them, or 200 or 300. There was hundreds of millions. And he says we just are not going to cooperate with them, but nonviolently, because we want our own country. Yeah. So we have to start to explore this kind of thing. I got a candle over there next to a picture of Donald Trump that I have in here. The Tibetans taught me to bring your enemies into the Zendo. the people who mean you harm are working for the other team. And so he represents that for me. And I've got a little candle there because, at his very heart of hearts, at the very center of him is love. Uh, and maybe he'll hear something in this talk. I doubt it, but there it is. You make the effort. Now, a couple other quotes to wrap up there that are really helpful. Margaret Mead, who's a great anthropologist, she said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." Yeah, I've got these quotes in the notes. You don't have to worry about writing them, but I get the sense of it. She say, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Bunch of guys, bunch of guys in Boston dressed up like Native Americans and with war paint and stuff, and they took the tea uh, on one of the because they were taxing you to drink British tea, and so they were boycotting the tea, and then the tea is sitting in the harbor, and they threw it all in the harbor. Boston Tea Party, you know. They didn't kill anybody; they just threw the tea over. They said we're not buying it, you know. So a small group of committed citizens beat the British Empire. Really, uh, it wasn't nonviolent. There was a Revolutionary War, but and Margaret Mead said also, she said, we're not talking about 100% of Americans coming, waking up, or we're not talking even about 50%. She said when 3% of a morphic field changes, that can change the whole field. So just realize that. Now today, how many how many hundreds of thousands of people are going to show up in Louisville and all around the world, and just with their own body, they're putting their hand and say, I don't buy this. I don't want a king. That's the No Kings demonstrations that are going on today. And I think it'll be very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see because people don't want this. People don't want their government destroyed. They don't want to have a king. And then the last quote sort of brings us back home to where we are right now. This is by Parker Palmer, who's one of my favorite guys in spirituality. He said, the destination is too daunting to be achieved alone. We need community to find the courage to venture into alien lands to which the inner teacher may call us. I want to go over that again because it's very interesting. So the destination is too daunting to be achieved alone. We need community. Here we are. Most of you show up every week. We've formed a community here, small community, but the size doesn't matter. We need community to find the courage to venture into alien lands. Lands nobody expected to be, to be here. But then he says to venture into alien lands to which the inner teacher may call us. And Parker spent a lot of time with the Quakers, and the Quakers talk about there is a teacher inside, a wisdom teacher inside all of us. Other wisdom teachers can wake that up. And the inner teacher is always going to take us into new territory that's sort of scary. And we're in that place now. But he said we need community, and we have community here. And we're going to see today how many people are going to amass. And since when has dissent become a crime? We're trying to make protest and dissent and just, I have a different idea what this country should be, and I'm showing up to tell you about it. Nonviolent public assembly is guaranteed in our Constitution, and places are trying to even outlaw that. And all the more reason that we just have to just show up one way or another. You showed up here today. That's doing a lot. So I think that's good enough to stop to end there. You be the change you want to see. Yeah. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.